All right.
Do we have to do that intro and stuff like that?
All right. You'll know when it's you'll know when it starts because it's loads of little lines. Do we have to do an intro? I think we should. I think we should do. I think you should.
Nobody
do it.
even knows who we are anymore.
Yeah, we're washed up.
We fell off.
We fell off. Any fall offers in chat?
Welcome everyone to the Real Talk podcast. We made it back. We have crawled out of the depths to talk about drama. Because that's what we do, John. We talk about drama on here.
And we're real about it. Some would say that we're super real about it, and we talk, and that's the name of the game.
That's the name of the podcast.
Roll credits, baby.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks for listening. See you guys later. Cue outro music.
John, are you excited?
I am excited. Look, I'm excited to be back here. Be back talking to you.
John, I missed you.
You've got married.
I haven't
time
seen
since we
you.
had
I
last
haven't
season.
seen you in so
I was
long.
there. I was there at the wedding.
I haven't spoken to you ever.
You got married, and you have a family of 5 children.
I do, and I named them all John.
They're all John
I
after
miss
me.
you so bad.
Because you love me so much.
Yeah.
Mwah.
Anyway, we're back.
Now that the pleasantries are out of the way, we're back. We're waffling.
Now that we've done our official intro.
Look, welcome back. Season 2, obviously. We took a pretty long hiatus. We both got busy. Life got some. But, and then JD Vance and Trump had an interview with Zelenskyy, and we decided that we're going to come back and talk about it.
Yeah. Also, I went on TikTok. Is Australia going to war with China or not? What's going on there?
Oh, because the warships that are sailing around the Australian coastline and doing live firing drills. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I think so. Because I just went on TikTok and people were saying, well, I guess we're cooked. We're going to war with China. And they're like, well, guess I'm moving to New Zealand.
Australia
and then people are like,
go to
bro,
war with China over it. It's just these Chinese ships are like, I mean, China does it to like Korea all the time, like South Korea, Japan, even like various territories of the United States that are in the Pacific areas. They've done it to New Zealand a few years ago. It's really just to push how far or see how far they can push, but it's also in retaliation for a Australian, I don't think it was a surveillance plane, it was something, was flying around the south coast of Taiwan, which it claimed as international waters, which, I mean, it's a bit sticky because, like, the borders for international, like, for waters are a little harder to dictate instead of the borders for, like a country, for instance. You don't have a lot of, like, land masses to kind of draw a line on in the ocean. Yeah. So, China perceived Australia as a plane invading their airspace and didn't shoot it down, but what it did is it flew one of its jets in front of the plane and then kept dispersing flares to make it like go away. It's a very commonly used tactic by any nation. Australia does it too. So does the US. It's like a warning. It's like, this is your first warning. We're firing flares in front of you. Yes, it can cause electrical things. Could set fire to something, but that's on you because you're flying in our like space, our territory, right? And so China have now been sailing these ships around doing live tests, being like, look, we can go in your water too. So it's a bit of a retaliation. Obviously, the Australian media won't cover that it's a retaliation because the Australian media are
scared
adamant that, well, it was more they're adamant that it was it was international waters. It wasn't, you were allowed to be there.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, it's a bit of a sticky situation. It's not the easiest one to explain, but no, we're not going to war anytime soon.
Oh, thank God.
I don't think. But you know who is at war?
I was gonna cut off my leg.
Oh, you could just like have like depression. They can't let you in then.
Oh, really? What if I paint my nails?
Because if you are diagnosed with depression and they let you in the military, where you can use live firearms both on yourself and other people. Dude,
life hack. Maybe the opposite of a life hack, but you know how it is.
A death hack. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Write that one
That,
down.
oh, that's good.
It's not good. Don't
I
do
mean,
that
no,
at
it's not
home.
good, but like, that's interesting. That's interesting that they actually think about that because
Mm.
depression, like people, I feel like people just didn't even know it was a thing for a while at
Like
least.
for yeah, it
They're like, "What? You're depressed?
definitely
Drink more water.
uh, go for a
Get better
walk.
sleep. Yeah,
Go for a
just
walk.
smile."
Are you eating enough red meat? Now, if you're watching on YouTube and still watching on YouTube because we're waffling away as we are, and not getting into the topic that we want to talk about, but if you are watching on YouTube, you might see that we do have visuals now.
We
It's not
do.
actually us.
We
Uh,
upgraded the budget.
it's yeah. So we upgraded the budget where we bought two 2D images and stuck
Hmm.
it over a copyrighted 2D image that we can then put 2D images inside of. So if you're interested in watching something or maybe like visually being able to see, for instance, back in the last season when I would waffle about maps and stuff, it was a bit difficult to like kind of understand what I was talking about. If you did want to see that, the visuals should be on YouTube now. And if you're listening on any other platform, whether that be what are the other platforms?
Spotify.
Spotify or anything else.
LimeWire.
LimeWire, yeah, MySpace. If you're
Make
listening
sure
on
you
there,
download. Make sure you download our podcast off LimeWire, and it's not going to be Soldier Boy's Crank
yeah,
That when you download it.
and you have to go to piratebay.com to make sure you find the correct piece. So so yeah, there's visuals there now. So if you are like a little confused, or if I'm waffling about a map or something, and you're like, I have no clue what this person's talking about, head over there onto YouTube. The links should be accessible. I want to say it's on the Spotify page.
And on
Um,
it'll be on like our the bios and stuff like that. No,
yeah, on
I
our
mean
bios,
it's in
on our
mine.
socials and things like that. I think I think Spotify has it as a link. Either way,
Yes.
welcome back again. Sorry for the long intro. It's season 2, so we've just got to kind of get all this admin stuff out of the way.
So much has happened, man.
So
It's
much
been
has
like
happened.
it has literally been, I think, almost a year.
It,
Let me
I,
see when I'm
I
gonna look up when the
actually, I
last
want to
upload was.
say mid last year, maybe. I think that
I'm
might be
gonna
a
look.
lie. I think it was
I'm
just, I
gonna
think it was like
look.
November. I think that's also a
John,
lie,
our
actually.
last episode was in May.
June. Oh, hello from a year in the future. It's gonna be really strange when people listen to this in like a year and they're like, "Oh, yay! There's a second season," and we're like, "Yeah, we haven't recorded for a year."
Yeah.
But we are here, and all of those who eagerly awaited it, all those 3 people and that guy's dog.
Hey, 10.
Thanks.
And one of them
Sorry.
was me, but still.
Look, it's wonderful to be back, and all that admin out the way. Just wanted to let you know that we are on Spotify, we're on YouTube as well, and that today we're going to be talking about kind of the not so much the war in the Ukraine because we have discussed that previously.
Which
Obviously, it's an
was,
ongoing
funnily
conflict,
enough, that was our last episode.
which obviously is a ongoing conflict, which means that it is always changing. It's still ongoing, unfortunately. 4 years on, it's still going.
That's
That might be a
crazy.
lie. I don't know if it's 4. I think it's 3.
Oh,
3 years on. Still
I mean, still.
crazy.
Yeah, still
Still
crazy.
crazy. Yeah. So 3 years on, still going. They're still holding out. But obviously, if you live under a rock or you don't follow certain political circles, you wouldn't have seen it. However, I don't live under a rock and I'm a radicalized political man, so I have seen it. JD Vance, who is Vice President of the United States currently, along with his president, Donald Trump, is so they had a meeting with President Zelenskyy, who, if you don't know, is the president of the Ukraine. Now he is the president of the Ukraine, not the dictator, not the ruler, not the oligarch, not the eternal supreme leader, not a authoritarian, figure. he is the president, a democratically elected leader who, according to the the Constitution, written and created by the Ukraine like 100 years ago now, roughly. When a president is elected, I don't actually think it's 100 years ago, by the way. I'm pretty sure that's a lie. However, the constitution that was written by the Ukraine when it gained its independence from the Soviet Union, which I actually think was just like the 90s, possibly the 80s, says that when under martial law, which Ukraine is because they're currently in the middle of a invasion upon them, which is a valid reason, I think, to enact martial law, because the country's in a state of martial conflict. Martial just means like military
Aliens.
or or Martians. Yeah, so when there are little green men in your country, you can declare a state of emergency. So they've declared martial law, and during martial law period, which now the Ukraine is reaching its third year in, or fourth year in, I should say, it doesn't hold elections. Because its entire population cannot vote. There are sections of the country that are occupied. There are members of the country who have left the country. And there are people who may have, or who are currently serving, that won't have the ability to vote. And so they don't allow the ability to vote during martial law. Now, one of the main arguments made by J.D. Cuck and Dorito Man was that he's a dictator because he's staying in power. Now, it's not a Putin-level staying of power where he's the only one running and his opponent gets poisoned suddenly. It's
allegedly.
No, he definitely was poisoned. He died.
Not allegedly.
Gulag. He died in a gulag. Putin, you can send whoever you like to kill me. They'll know it was you.
Oh
We might have to cut that out. The election is meant to run, or was meant to run last year, I think, actually, because he was elected in 2020. So this is technically his 5th year in government, I think. Let me fact check that before I get angry about that. When
That's
was
crazy.
Zelenskyy elected? 2019. Okay, I'm completely lying. 2019. So there was meant to be an election last year, I think. And it didn't happen because they were under martial law.
Getting shot at.
Yes, because they're getting shot at, bombed, killed, murdered by an invading force. And so, he's not a dictator. He's not attempting to grasp on and hold power. He's a democratically elected man who, yes, some people will probably make the argument, so was Hitler. Yeah, that's true. But Zelensky's had 4 years in government and hasn't persecuted a minority. Do you know who's had 2 months in government and has persecuted a minority? Donald Trump. So, you know, like, if we're going to compare anyone, I think we can comfortably compare someone else. It feels like a bit of...
John, you're alienating 90% of our audience right now. You know that they're all Republicans.
No! Are you telling me that Republicans listen to this?
Yeah.
This podcast where I've talked openly about being a communist multiple times?
Somebody, you know what? The things are coming in, our ratings are dropping rapidly.
No, not the ratings.
Somebody just left a comment and said, I thought this was the Donald Trump podcast. Oh, no. Oh, we're done for.
Big Donnie. He's gone. Fuck that guy. Sorry.
Anyway, that's crazy. I actually didn't know that about the but I mean, obviously it makes a lot of sense that you can't, have an election while the place is under martial law.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's quite common in a lot of constitutions. I'd be surprised if it wasn't in, like, the US's, like, Bill of Laws, at least, not their, like, written constitutions, because they love quoting those. But, they're like Bill of Laws where like under martial law they can't have an election. It makes sense, right? Like you shouldn't have an election when your entire population can't vote, or where a significant amount of your population might not have the ability to vote. And you look at like footage from the independence votes in the Donetsk region like 2 years ago, and it was a Russian soldier with a gun standing behind a ballot that had no border, and was waiting for them to tick yes on the "Do you want independence from Ukraine and join Russia?" option. We're not seeing that, and you don't want to run an election and then request like Russian help to monitor the votes coming from those regions, including the occupied regions that aren't included in the ones that attempted to gain independence, because that's what this war was over in the first place, was that two regions backed by Russian militias and money attempted to gain independence from Ukraine, but they've been funded by the Russian government, and that's proven. There's paper trails leading back to it for like a decade. And so when Zelenskyy, because the previous president before Zelenskyy was super pro-Russian and was seen very much as like a Russian puppet, and when Zelenskyy was elected and he's very anti-Putin, the kind of independence movement really started to ramp up, and a lot of people were like, man, that's really interesting that these militias existed happily in Ukraine for years while they were like under Russian quote unquote rule by proxy. But then the moment like an anti-Russian guy gets in, this independent movement turns into something where they request foreign aid. It's a real mess.
Talking about anti-Putin, I was trying to go to the toilet and John wasn't letting me, but you can say he was anti-pooping.
That was me. I was anti-pooping. Anti-pooping.
I said, John, please, please, please. And I had my hands on my ass like a toddler. And I was saying, please, 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 John. And I was stomping my feet. And he said, no, we have to do the podcast. Yeah, so now I've got tape around my butt cheeks.
So he's got a cork up there and he's taped it on. All right. It is plugged.
I'm going to shoot this thing out at like... You're going to think that there was a gun in this room.
There's going to be a hole in his chair. There's going to be a hole in his chair. It's just going to...
I'm filling up.
Yuck.
Anyway.
Yuck.
Anyway, tell me about Ukraine and stuff.
So, like, when I go, obviously I ranted a little bit there, but I don't want to talk about the state of the Ukraine war currently.
Okay.
It's a bit of a mess.
Don't tell me about that.
No. So the borders are moving a lot. Conflicts are happening here and there. There's like 3 major regions there's fighting. But what I really want to talk about is the reaction to the stance that the governing body of the United States has taken on Ukraine. Now, Ukraine has had a huge amount of support from the US for the past 3 years. It's received both physical military equipment, be it in the form of air defense weaponry, to F-16 fighter jets, which have just deployed, which are really cool. They've had Abrams tanks delivered to them, weaponry, ammunition, all those kind of things. But it's also received things like monetary aid to help with infrastructure recuperation, training in American air bases, a lot of American support, which of course was thanked. There's hundreds of clips. You can realistically Google it now. You'll probably get a 10-minute video of like 4-second clips is how many there are of Zelenskyy thanking the American people. I watched a video yesterday and it was really nice. It was a guy called Sivdiv. Now, Sivdiv served in the Marines in the United States back when like the Iraq War was a thing. And he now fights as a independent PMC, which instantly I know Jack's brain is firing and he goes, that's the one from Tarkov. Yes, it is.
Yeah, I'm getting flashbacks.
Yes, it is. It just means private military company. So it's a person who sells themselves as a mercenary to war. Now, he goes to different countries and he does it for free most of the time. Sometimes he gets paid, but for the most part, it's free. He's fought the Turkish in the Kurd lands against like Syria and Turkey against for the independence of the Kurds. And he's fought in the Ukraine multiple times over the past few years in support for the Ukrainian people. And he showed images and videos where he was fighting in companies full of Ukrainian men, where some of them have learned English over the past few years to talk to the volunteers because they want to be able to communicate with the people and thank them. And a lot of these Ukrainian people and he showed a lot of pictures of it from different years, different times he went. A lot of them have American badges on their helmets, on their outfits, not because their stuff that they've bought are American or the stuff that they're wearing is American, but because they've got that badge and put it on there themselves because that's their way of showing appreciation. They want to show I'm representing, I'm thankful, and so I want to sport something that you find so important. Like the American flag, as we all know, is a big sign of patriotism to the United States, and so a Ukrainian wearing it is like a sign of like, I stand with you. I love the US like you do. Now, for him, it's really hard because he was a soldier in the Marines. He fought for what he believed was right, and he believed in things like the Saddam Hussein takedown and stuff, because they did stuff like gas attack people he fought with in the Kurd lands and stuff. And I saw a comment under his video, which I thought was really powerful. And it said that, thank you for being the voice of what America once was. And this man, he wasn't there shitting on like the Trump regime. He wasn't angry. He was just being very concise. And he was like, listen, those who really realize that it's fear-mongering and it's fake and it's pretend and that they're doing this because it's for a political or policy-making scheme, you're the people who should be here. Everyone who's subscribed to this channel will know that I fight for the right fight. I've never fought in a conflict where I've looked back on and gone, oh, I was wrong. And I've been to Ukraine 5 or 6 times over the past few years, and he's like, I support this regime fully. I believe that they're a democratic power being invaded by a non-democratic power who seeks to annex their home and then cleanse them from their home. They spout things like propaganda about Ukrainians being Nazis. They spout propaganda about Ukrainians genociding Russians in their land. And then, you hear stories of Russians being completely content being under Ukrainian occupation in areas like Kharkiv in the north, where is it Kharkiv? I think so.
Yeah.
The salient in the north where the Ukrainians have pushed into Russia and taken sections of land, and the Russians there are like, well, they feed us, they give us water and electricity, and they give us everything we need. If we ask for something, they provide it. And there are moments where sometimes it feels like the old regime wouldn't have done that, and they're talking about Russia. But then they're also like, look, I'm Russian, and I love my country, but I don't see a problem with how they're treating us. Like, they're not persecuting us. They don't see us any different way because we're Russian, which is really important. Because you see the way that Ukrainians are treated under the Russian regime, and they're, like, raped, they're pillaged, their villages are destroyed, they're displaced, they're shot, they're treated as subhuman. Whereas Russians under Ukrainian occupation are treated like completely normal people. They don't hold their country's values against them. They don't hold what their country's actions against them because they're just people caught in the middle of a conflict, right? Now, that, I think, shows really importantly how not everybody in the US shares the same view, right? That's true, obviously, because you have people who are really upset about it. But it's unfortunate that people in his comments are like, this is how it used to feel. When you were American and you supported people, you supported them to like the end, you would die for them, you would topple whole governments because you believed that was the correct thing to do, which is crazy, right? Crazy imperialism. It is what it is. Like, there's nothing we can say or do about that to change it. But it was a period of time where many people were affected by the presence of the Russian military. We're talking like early 2000s, late 90s, 2010s even. But the words he's talking and the way he's explaining how he sees it is obviously a very like Marine, like I've served in the Marines kind of view. It's hard for him to go, my country's wrong. But he still sat down and went, look, I don't want to be political because that's not why people watch this channel. They watch this channel because they want to see updates from the zones I'm in and the effects that's having on the people in it. But to him, he found it really hard to talk negative about his own country, but he still did it. And this is like, when you think of like American patriotism, you think of their veterans, and you think of their like, yeehaw cowboy guys, and he's a Southern veteran. Like, you couldn't get more stereotypical patriot than that. Not only that, he was in the Marines, like hoorah and all that rubbish. But he still sat there and went, look, they're wrong. Like, they're wrong. The people I fight with aren't Nazis. They aren't genocidal maniacs. I fought against them. I have fought against those people, and I have done for decades now. And I think it's disgusting that people will quite happily forget the past, which I think is also a really important point. And I spout this all the time. There's a lot of, for people who don't know, I'm a teacher in training, but I currently work in a school. And a lot of the time, what a lot of kids will say is, I don't know why I learn history, leave the past in the past. And it's people with that mentality that are now allowing now to happen. And I talked about this in our previous Ukraine one, in quite a few of our podcasts, actually, how important it is to know the past, because you see it repeating. It's a cycle. It always is. What a lot of people don't know is it repeats in everything. So not just war, but music, in fashion, food, everything. Everything repeats. You have song types, themes, tunes that come back around. You have political movements that always come back around. You have, unfortunately, conflicts that come back around. You have fashion that comes back around. Food loves that come back around. It's very normal. We human beings are creatures of habit. And when an old generation dies and those ideas do not die with them, because we're in the age of information and you can access it at any point, people are like, man, that's cool. I should give that a go, because you weren't alive during that period. You have no fucking clue what it was like. Right? Like, that's what reminiscing on bygone eras is. Like, a lot of people, at least in my generation that I know, look back on times like the early 2000s like they're the best times in the world. But realistically, we were all fucking babies and we don't remember any of it. But we look back and we go, that seems semi-familiar. So you want to repeat it. And that's why you see the rise of like, you're seeing scene stuff come back, and punk rock is on its rise again, and physical media, things like vinyl, CDs, books, it's all being brought back. Streaming services.
That's crazy that you say that, because we were walking through the shops earlier today and I went, oh, sick, vinyls. Because I haven't listened to a vinyl before in my life.
Yeah, but that's
like,
because
just the thought
it existed.
of that.
Yeah, it existed in a time like we didn't experience that, so now we want to. Yeah. And that's what it is. Everything is a cycle. Everything. You just experience
iPod shuffles and Minecraft.
Yeah, and like, sure, sometimes you get sometimes it's nostalgia, but other times it's that I want to experience things I didn't experience, and I'm able to do that. That's why people love old cars. I'm a fiend for an early 2000s car. I couldn't drive until 2018. I'm not going to drive a 2018 car. That's boring. I want to drive a car from long... Yeah, I want to drive a car from long before I was able to drive, because they look cool and they're different and they don't look like all the things I know now, right? That's really where it is, and unfortunately that behavior repeats in everything. And we see it now in political movements. We just had the election in Germany, which is really a different podcast topic, but the far right conservative, I mean, let's not be around the bush, the Nazi party got elected in half the country, which is pretty crazy. Like really crazy, actually, that was even possible. There's a funny, not funny, that's an awful way to put it. There is a map that I think's really interesting that I will put in this chat now, and then we're going to put it on our green screen behind us. If you wanted to see it,
we got a budget increase.
We got a budget increase. So I'll send that in this chat here. But the blue party are the fascists. They're the Nazis. They were the ones that were elected. And the black one is the ultra-conservative Christian party. And the red is like socialist, greens are greens, The rest is pretty good color grading. But for those of you who are just listening on, the entire, what was at the time Eastern Bloc that was owned by the Soviet Union after World War II, every state, except Berlin proper, voted for this Nazi party. It's 8% behind taking victory, which is crazy because the only other party that beat it was the Christian Conservative Party. So it's not like they really won. But like, let's look back at history. Quick little spin around here. Do you know another time when the Nazi Party came second? The 1933 elections. I want to say it was 1933. And then they led a coup that didn't work. Then they put the painter in a prison. He wrote a little book, came out, and won the next election because of an economic collapse. Because the economy was in freefall. Have you guys seen the... I doubt it. Or maybe, if you're listening, Jack, you might not have. The tariffs that the US government are putting on all of their trade neighbors have been approved. They were delayed for a little bit. He's now approved them, which means that's a 25% tariff on everything. The stock market crashed so hard, so, to the likes that it hasn't been seen since 2011, which was the wake of the 2008 recession. The stock market then crashed in 2011 and stabilized in 2013. But the stock market has plummeted, and it will probably plummet again in the coming weeks. Economic collapse in the US means economic collapse everywhere. Now, when a Nazi party gets almost voted and then economic collapse happens, they will get voted. It's a uncomfortably close parallel to what we saw in Germany about 100 years ago. Like, weirdly close, right? Like almost like deja vu-y. It's really strange. And we're now seeing rises of these fascist parties all over the world. But people who forget the past and vote for these parties because they think it will bring positive change to that positive to them, don't realize the larger picture. And that's really what we're seeing in the United States at the moment. And that's the outlook that people are having all over the world. Now, obviously, I started this podcast talking about J.D. Vance and Trump, but the reason I kind of moved over to showing the Germany thing as well is that it's not just one place that we're seeing it. That's just the one that's always in the news because obviously it's the United States, right? We're seeing a rise in ignorance and a rise in a willful forgetfulness of the past that is causing the destruction of the ability for independence of the minority class. Whether that be people in the LGBTQ plus community, whether that be the non-native population. Native is the wrong way to put it. The wrong major population area of the country, whether that be white people or anything else.
What can I say? What can I say?
Yeah, so, minorities in general, whether that be race or culture or gender, they are being persecuted, they are being blamed. The current blame for a lot of things in the United States is trans people. Trump signed a bill to disallow trans athletes to participate in college sports. Do you know how many trans athletes there are in the United States currently participating in men's sports? Jack, do you want to have a little guess for me?
6.
6, you reckon? Okay. Yes, so he's just signed this because he's like, it's unfair and it's causing so many problems in our sporting system that anyone should be allowed to do that.
Make sure you do a Donald Trump impression. People love that. It's
causing so many problems in all of our athletics.
Dude,
there are so many problems with all of these trans people in our sports. I'm going to ban them from it. I'm going to sign these 10 students. I'm going to stop them from allowing them to ruin our sports.
Actually?
Yes, 10. That's it.
It was
10.
Wait,
yeah.
I thought I was like way off by saying 6.
10 trans athletes in American sports that participate in things outside of their birth-assigned gender sport. And he signed an executive government bill to disallow them because he believed that was more of a problem than the other issues in the country.
Mm.
What a absolute waste of time, effort, and administrative power. He's also done things like signed executive bills that if you don't have papers, you'll be deported immediately. There's already been something like 40 flights of people shipped back to various areas in Central America. The southern border has had its wall rebuilt, and Texas has been given free rein to do the things it was doing 2 years ago, where it had actual tanks on the border to stop people crossing. Mexico as a state has its own military, by the way. I only figured that out last year, where they have their own Abrams and fighter jets, as in only the state can use. Isn't that crazy?
That's actually, yeah, kind of nuts.
I find it very frustrating when it's because I don't fit any of these bills. I'm white. I'm a man. I'm straight for the most part.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
I'm well, I'm a socialist, but that doesn't really count. That's not counted as a minority yet. Just you wait. They'll deport political enemies next. I know it. If I know anything about history, political enemies are next. But I don't fall into any of those categories. But it is so upsetting to me to see minorities persecuted and blamed for the problems that are in that country, whether it be people not born there or people of a different, like, proclivity, you know? Like, do you know where else we saw that, Jack? I'll give you one real easy guess where else that happened.
Oh, no.
One real easy guess.
John, you put me on the spot. I wasn't ready for this.
It was in 1936.
Of course.
It was in Europe.
John, you can't do this to me.
It was a country.
Yeah.
Did a thing.
I'm sure it was. Wait, were you saying minorities?
Yep, that's what they did.
It's just Germany.
It was Germany. What?
Hey, guys,
are you telling me? Wait a minute. Are you telling me that Hitler blamed the entire economic collapse and political dysfunction in a country on a minority?
I didn't know that he did it.
Minute.
I didn't know he had a reason. I thought he just didn't like them.
Wait, no, he didn't like them. There is no reason. The minority did nothing. That's the point.
No, sorry. I mean, like.
Oh, you thought that just came out of no? Oh, right.
I thought he was just like, hey, I don't like you guys very much.
No. So he blamed the downfall of the country. That initially was why they allowed the persecution. Eventually, it did just turn into let's get rid of them. But at first, it was things like deportation of trans, gay people, and then it was Jewish people, and then it was at the time they were considered Romani, which I think they might still be considered that now, but I don't know if that's a yikes thing to call them anymore. I apologize if it is. I don't know.
Guys, John's saying slurs.
I think
John's saying slurs on the pod.
Just traveling people. I'm not sure. Anyway, anyone who was different was blamed for the country's problems. If you weren't German, it is your fault our country's in this mess. And then, you know, the whole Holocaust happened. Did you know the first trans clinic on Earth opened in Berlin in Germany?
Fire.
Hitler swiftly closed it. But it showed that the country was progressive. The country had ideas. It was a newly democratic country that was heavily affected by, unfortunately, both its loss in World War One and an angry
man with a funny mustache.
Well, it didn't have a political alignment. You know, like the UK has always been, or not always, but it's always been like a parliamentary monarchy. So it's had, like, at that point, it had like 1,000 years to, like, 1,000's a bit rough, like 600 years to kind of like everyone to kind of get in their political idea. Germany was a authoritarian monarchy, or like an empire, that only had a king and a king in charge until the fall of their country in World War One, and then it was now you have to figure out what you want to do politically, and that's why it was just all over the place. You had like hundreds of political parties. It was a mess, right? We don't have that, and yet we still see a repeat in people's unknowingness of political ideologies. It takes one Google. If you open Google right now and Google any political party you want, you will have pages and pages and pages of information. I know it's a bit overwhelming, and you don't have to do it every time, but at least, please, I'm begging anyone who watches this, listens to this, anything, if you don't know what you are going to vote for in an election, do not just vote for what your parents are voting for. Don't just vote for what your friends are voting for. Vote for what you want. Look up the parties. It will take like 10 minutes of your time, less time than it will take you to go and vote, to Google what these parties' policies are. They'll always have them on the front page in big letters because they want you to be able to see them really quick. And then you go, yeah, that sounds pretty good. I want that. Right? The problem is that people are so staunchly like, I'm a liberal, I'm a Labour, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat, and will never change their vote. You have to be flexible in democracy. Otherwise, democracy doesn't work. Yeah. It just slides one way on the scale, and it stays like that forever until something catastrophic happens, like the deportation authoritarianism of a country. And that's what we're going to see. The US is either going to turn into a fascist state, which it practically already is, and we're going to see like live 1989 Big Brother, which is a book. It's a book called 1989. It's a very good book. It's by George Orwell, and it's about like a state that everything is monitored, everything is controlled, that no one can even breathe without someone knowing it. It's that kind of thing, right? That's where the term Big Brother comes from. They're like the big bad in 1989, so they're like always watching over you.
If I hypothetically was putting another cork up my ass right now, someone would know.
Yeah, the government would know. And you probably have to declare that cork or something. We'd both be thoroughly arrested and probably killed for making a podcast like this.
Oh, no.
Like 100%, dude. Like, but that's what we're seeing. We're seeing an exact repetition of what happened in Nazi Germany in the United States.
Are you saying that we're like whistleblowers?
No, I think enough people know this. I just don't think... I think us talking into a camp, like two white guys talking into a microphone, isn't going to fix it. But I think you should be allowed to get angry about it, and I think you should always use a platform, no matter how big or small, whether anyone's listening, just talk to your friends about it. Do you know what happened today at work? I have a bunch of communist badges on my bag, right? Just cool ones from like the Soviet Union. And
what did the people say, John?
Well, someone went, "Oh, who's the communist?" And I was like, "Oh, me." And he was like, "Oh, that's funny. You're missing one." And I was like, "Oh, what one am I missing?" And they were like, "Oh, Germany." And I was like, "What do you mean? What, East Germany? I could get a badge from East Germany, I guess." And they were like, nah, it begins with an S. And I was like, what the hell does a swastika have to do with communism? And they were laughing this whole time. And then I was like so straightforward. I was like, what does that have to do with communism? And they both just went stone-faced. They were obviously like, oh, this guy isn't going to find this funny. And I was like, what? And he was like, oh, they're sometimes tied together. And I was like, no, they're not. They're two completely political ideologies. In fact, polar opposites. That was kind of the point. I was going to
say, I don't think I've ever heard of an instance where communism and
they fought against each other
Nazis
in World War II.
II.
That's the closest you're ever going to get between those two symbols. Is that they were shooting at each other on a battlefield. But these two grown men, teachers, went, oh, this is really funny. And I instantly was like, yeah, these were two grown teachers who thought it was really funny. And I was like, this isn't...
So I was giving them the benefit of the doubt because you were telling me it was that you were on like a school camp or something, right?
Yeah, I was on a
school camp. You were talking about the
Just
children.
for context, I was at a camp today, and so there was a bunch of teachers there who normally wouldn't know who I am. And so, yeah, they laughed at it, they pointed at it, they're like, oh, you're missing one, the German one, the one with the S, and I was like, that has nothing to do with communism. And I was so stone-faced. I wasn't laughing at all. They were like, funny, really funny. And they both paused, and they both went, oh, yeah. And then this guy was like, oh, what's this one mean? Like, obviously trying to deflect. And I was like, oh, that's the cosmonaut symbol for their space program.
That's the swastika.
I'll flip this around.
Yeah, you turn the bag around. It's just a big swastika on there.
just to make sure everyone knows, I am in no way a Nazi. I don't know if the past 40 minutes have given you any outline to the fact that I'm not one, but I'm not. It really pissed me off because they obviously find that funny. oh, funny swastika, haha. It's
Mm.
it's the lack of emotional and realization of the meaning behind that symbol alone that is frustrating. Yes, the communist symbol has been used by regimes that are awful and are horrible, but that doesn't mean that the base symbol is bad. The Nazi Germany was bad. Nazism is bad. There's no middle ground for the swastika.
Mm.
There's no like socialism. The hammer and sickle was around 100 years before the Soviet Union was even founded. Right? Do you know what wasn't? The swastika in its Nazi form. It was made by a Nazi for the Nazis, and it was destroyed and banned around the world because it is a Nazi symbol. It is
Mm.
not funny to joke about. It is not funny to be like, haha, you should get one. Not funny. Right? Anyway, really upset me, but it really highlights that no matter what position you're in, even a teacher is fucking stupid, ignorant, and blind to how important it is that we teach that these symbols are not just symbols. They carry meaning. These acts are not just boring acts that are happening over the ocean. They carry meaning for the whole world. And if people don't realize that everything is repetition and realize the patterns, you'll welcome a new world order that will not favor you. You know,
And you will
it's
die.
maybe not die, but
Uh,
could be even worse. You know,
uh, a cork up your ass.
you can end up with a cork up your ass.
Dude, that's awful. No, that's an interesting thing to. Yeah, no, that absolutely broke my brain when you mentioned that it was two teachers that said that.
It's hard to imagine teachers with such, like, one extremely inappropriate statement to make. Like, oh, you're missing the swastika. What is that? What? What does that even mean? Are you calling me a Nazi? Or are you saying, like, haha, this is funny? No, you're just an idiot. You're an idiot who needs to do a Google search, mate.
I hope that's not a history teacher.
No, they weren't. They were two
Were
PE
they both?
teachers, and it
Dude,
showed.
I was gonna call it. I was literally gonna say, were they both PE
And
teachers?
it showed. It
Was one of them wearing a
showed.
backwards hat or something?
No, but both were wearing Under Armour, the tightest shirts I've ever seen in my life. So,
Go
um,
on, call out their names. Tell us their
no,
names.
no, here's their
Tell us the
government
school.
address.
Tell us
Here's
the
their
school.
government
We'll go
address.
sort them
Here's
out.
their phone. Who's their phone number?
Here's the
Uh,
principal.
here's the.
We'll get them sorted out.
um, yeah. So it's really frustrating, and I think the pattern that is emerging that we're seeing in the United States, which is person takes power who is radical, blames minorities for problems in country, economy begins fluctuating, attempts to fix economy by blaming other countries,
Mm.
then it starts to deport and impose laws that regulate and remove the rights of those minorities in their country that they're blaming, and implements an entire governing body that is only controlled by that one leader. We've seen once. And what was it? I think, don't quote me, roughly, approximately, 40 days is all it took for Hitler to be not only elected into the government, but to then take control of that whole government and create a dictatorship. It took 40 days because not a lot of people know. Well, actually, you should know, but Hitler was democratically elected into government. He was not democratically elected to be the chancellor, which was like the leader of Germany at the time, and he was not democratically elected to be the president, which was like the one under the chancellor, but he was elected as the head of his party, who was the head of the government. He then forced his way into the chancellorship, and then burnt down the Reichstag, which was the government building, and then declared martial law, and then took control of the country. It took 40 days, and the people elected him in. I don't know how many days we are in now of this presidency, but we'll have to see if he can beat the record.
Mm. Anyway, John, how long have we been going?
40 minutes.
Wait, really?
Well, 49 minutes.
Yeah, I was gonna say it feels like it's been way longer than that. What the hell?
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. No, I literally
No,
because
it
I
feels
kept
like it's
looking
been
at the time.
forever. You've been
Dude, you've just been
waffling.
fucking yapping, bro. No, I guess I didn't realize what time we actually started.
Yeah, we started pretty late. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
That's all right. We can end it here if you want to end early. That's
No,
fine. Okay. Well, what?
tell me
Obviously, I
more things.
well, I've been yapping for 50 minutes. Why don't you have a little yap? Why don't you tell me what you know about this circumstance? Obviously, I've waffled quite a bit about Nazi Germany and
Okay,
and
so I
and
guess the
comparisons to
one
the U.S.
thing
government, but
that I've literally been like waiting to because obviously we've been talking about getting the podcast up again for a while,
mm,
and ever since this stuff that happened with Zelensky and Trump and JD Vance and stuff like that, I've been curious to know like what the fuck happened in this whole conversation that happened, because I know obviously like because I keep seeing like clips and stuff like that of it where it's like um I don't know, just weird shit going on. Donald Trump saying like, "Why aren't you wearing a suit?" And then Zelensky said, "I will wear costume when the war is over," or something like that. Um, but I feel like there was a lot that happened that I did miss in the whole thing, because obviously, like the thing that was pointed out to me was like sort of like caught my attention was, oh, Donald Trump kicked Zelensky out of the Oval Office and stuff like that.
yeah, he pretty much kicked him out. Um, pretty much, uh, hmm. Zelensky was invited to the Oval Office to have a discussion on the future of the Ukraine and the provision of goods and money to the Ukraine by
Hmm.
the US. And a lot of people are seeing it as like a political ambush because it pretty much was. It was a room full of politicians and press, and they sat Zelensky down in front of the vice and the president of the United States and berated him for 15 minutes. They then punched him and stole his lunch money,
Oh no.
and then told him to uh, ride the bus home because they took the wheels off his bike. Like
Hmm.
it was pretty messed up. Um, Pretty much the deal that Trump is trying to impose on Zelensky, threatening to impose, because he believes that he has the power to end a war in Europe with his words. Um, he wants $500 billion worth of resources from the Ukraine, and all the territory that Russia wants should be ceded, and so an armistice can be signed. And that is Zelensky's fault and his country's fault that they ended up in the situation they're in. These are his words. He said, "You've put yourself and your country in this situation. It is your fault." In this meeting, to this man who has been defending and fighting for his country for 3.5 years, Donald Trump, the orange, fat, Jabba the Hutt looking guy, if you didn't know who he was, that's who he is, sat
Orange
down in a
fat man.
chair next to this hero, berated him at the fact that he's not wearing a suit when he's come from a war-torn country. Zelensky would rather wear the outfit that his soldiers are wearing when they are not in their full combat gear, because he himself considers himself a soldier, because he is willing to lay down everything he's doing and fight for his country. And so he's happy to wear that outfit. He wore that to the Oval Office. They berated him for it. They said that he doesn't say thank you enough for all the help, and that the US will now stop all arms and support to the Ukraine, and that the Ukraine were never expecting to pay back the money that the US has given to them. Trump has this idea in his head that the Ukraine are paying back Europe, but not the US, and he sees that as unfair. Now, he had a meeting with Macron, who is the president of France, who is a staunch Ukrainian supporter. And he had a meeting with him not too long after. And in that meeting, Trump was asked why he believes that Ukraine should pay back the money. And Macron explained that he used... and Trump was like, well, look, Europe gets the money back. The US doesn't. And I think, an armistice that will allow us to get our money back would be really important. And and Macron literally put his hand on Trump's like leg and went, I just want to butt in here. I just want to say, Europe isn't giving loans. We are giving money from the EU Council Fund, and we are giving frozen Russian assets to the Ukraine to use as money. We aren't expecting it to be paid back. And then Trump just sat there silently, like a little baby who had been corrected. Pretty much, J.D. Vance ripped into Zelensky saying that he's causing all this harm and conflict for his people, and that it's his fault, and that he should make a deal with Russia as soon as possible because it would stop all the conflict. Which, yes, it was, but it would also lead to the annexation of his country and his home, and then their people's inevitable removal from it. Now, Zelensky fought back against J.D. Vance and said, have you ever been to the Ukraine? And J.D. Vance paused and went, I have never been, but I've seen the videos, and I've seen the
me too,
pictures, and seen the pictures of what's going on. And Zelensky, it's quite a good clip. I might see if I can put it here, but he shakes his head and he crosses his arms and looks away and goes, suka bliat. And
yes, I have seen that clip.
It's very good clip. It's a very good clip. And yes, it's a really fucking bullshit space. Very funny reaction to a world leader berating you though, being like, fucking idiot, it's very. Now, Zelensky went to the EU after this, went to an EU council meeting. The EU, I have to say this because I'm actually really proud. The EU, as a uniform group, have all said that they support the Ukraine. They will continue to support the Ukraine, and they have no intention of never stopping. Australia, which is normally America's little butt sniffer, has said that they will always support the Ukraine and intend to continue to support the Ukraine militarily and financially. And at this EU Council meeting, they took all of their pictures and stuff, and on their way up the steps into the boardroom where they were going to conversate, 5 or 6 out of the 15 leaders there kept stopping Zelensky and hugged him. And kept hugging him, and you can see Zelensky almost crying in his meeting with Keir, who is the British Prime Minister currently, who was saying the whole time, I just want to start. He started this meeting between him and Zelensky saying, I just want to preface that we have no intention of ever stopping our support for your country, and we truly believe that you're all heroes and that you're all fighting the good fight. And you can see it, Zelensky's tearing up because obviously he's just come from a meeting 2 days before that where he was berated and told it was his fault. And then he's gone to the EU and they're all like, it's all right, dude. You're fighting the right fight. And it shows that even when we see, the unfortunate rise of far-right ideas in many places in Europe, it's still an identity that they all hold really dear. Europeans will band with Europeans, Yeah. Even the British, which is crazy because they don't like the continent, but they're happy to support people, and they're actually in second talks to lower the effects of Brexit. Could possibly be welcomed back into the EU currently, which is really good. But yeah, it's that's pretty much what happened. J.D. Vance was called a fucking idiot, and at one point Trump was getting really angry and raising his voice, and Zelensky said, Mr. President, I can hear your voice getting louder, but not your argument changing, or not your argument getting more right or something.
What a fucking just alpha male. What a Chad.
You've got to remember, Zelensky was a stand-up comedian before he was
Was he really? I didn't even know that.
He was a comedian.
Yeah.
He was a very
I also
popular
just looked up that he's
Ukrainian...
not even 50 years old.
Yeah, he's a
Donald
young.
Trump's like fucking 1 foot in the grave,
He's a
dude.
genuinely pretty young leader, and he was also a comedian before he was a president. So he's like very witty,
Oh,
very
dude.
quick,
So
good
he could
writer.
probably do a rap battle as
He
well.
could easily epic rap battle of history Donald Trump
Oh,
right now.
dude. Wait, can we look up Nice Peter's YouTube channel and
I
see if
would
that's up
like
there?
the idea that like he tags JD Vance in the middle of it. Like that would be really funny. Um yeah, so that's what happened at that meeting. It was a disproportionate, uncomfortable scenario to put a world leader in and then attempt to bully them into accepting a deal made and written by a country that's on the other side of the ocean to them, that has no national aligning values or willingness or want to actually help the country. Um, and it was just a weird watch in general. Like, what have you actually seen of it? Is it just the stuff I've been mentioning?
Um, yeah, pretty much just like clips on like Twitter and stuff like that. But also I'm seeing that there has been a Donald Trump versus Kamala Harris epic rap battle. There's been a Donald Trump versus Joe Biden epic rap battle. Um, we got Thanos versus J. Robert Oppenheimer.
I d-
Um,
that's an interesting one. I don't know if that's quite in line. I'm sure we'll see the Zelensky versus Putin one. I'd be surprised if it
I'm
wasn't.
I'm not seeing one.
Really?
Yep.
Maybe they just don't want to put a political stance on it. Very apolitical channel.
Mm,
Epic rap battles of history.
yeah.
Well
I
known for
like
not being
I like that you
political.
say that, and like their like banner is like it's just always important figures of history. But they also got oh wait, where did it go? Oh, they got Ronald McDonald versus Burger King. So
Jeez,
oh sorry,
I
the
want to see
Burger
that
King.
one. Oh, the Burger King. Oh, like the bun with the crown
No,
on.
the Human Man.
Uh, oh, that guy with the big beard.
Yeah. They got Elon
Yeah.
Musk and Mark Zuckerberg. Anyway, I'm gonna stop looking at
Yeah.
that.
Anyway, yeah. Look, that was episode 1 of season 2. I guess I just
Mm.
rambled a lot about how uncomfortable it makes me that we're going in a pattern that we've seen before, but nobody's paying full attention to. And that when you begin to notice patterns in history that are repeating now, you can stop them, or you can voice to anyone. And that's really the message that I'm trying to convey here is that, yeah, sure, we're not bajillion gazillionaires, because we're not. I don't have really a following. Jack has a decent following, but they're the same loyal people. It's like,
Haha.
sorry, I just completely undersold you there. Jack has a decent platform. I have an okay-ish dead platform, and I myself feel it's important that in our little side project podcast to convey to you, the listener, that it is important to hold values that you see as true to yourself, whether that be against what I talked about today or for. Tell your friends how you feel. Don't judge them when they don't know what it means. Don't judge them or get angry at them when they don't agree with you. Ask if they're open to change their mind. And if they are, just talk about it. Tell them about these repetitions in history. Tell them how the things they say, do, write, draw, affect other people and what those messages actually mean. Because the only way to kill a movement is to kill the idea behind it. And if you can kill a Nazi movement by removing its imagery, by explaining what it actually is and how it affects everyone, and the things it's done in the past to people who might not know these things, then you're one step closer to killing a movement that should have been dead 100 years ago. And that's really the most important part of political discussion, of a podcast like this, of sometimes talking about these things with your friends. I talk to these things about these things to Jack when we're not on a podcast, which I'm
Which is the
sure he
exact
absolutely
reason.
loves.
No, it's the exact reason I said, bro, we should start a podcast.
Like, it's really important that you use whatever platform you have, whether that be one friend, 100 friends, a live streaming platform with millions of people, or a YouTube video with 10 people. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. Just talk to your friends about politics sometimes and explain to them that it's important to have self-knowledge and value and understanding of those politics. Because yes, people will say I'm not political, I don't understand it, but you can understand it when you Google a political party and it says, we stand for young people, we like workers' rights, or we don't like Mexicans and we don't like trans people. It's obvious their views.
Mhm.
And if you vote for that party and you don't understand their views, it can really end up affecting a lot more people than just your little old ignorant self. And ignorance isn't bad, it just means you're not informed. And so if that means you wish to be informed, then you can listen here. Or you can talk to your friends about it. That's really the message I'm just trying to get across. Just talk to each other about it and consume a bit of media every now and then. It's important to stay on top of what's going on, and it's important to feel yourself and have your own values on the state of the world and how you feel about everything.
Now, John, if the people want to ask you more questions, where can they find you?
Um,
You got to get your Twitter up and running again,
I
man.
actually don't. I don't know where they can find me. What's
You need to get back on Twitter, man. It's
You can
great
find
over
me
here.
at
It's a
my
great place.
at my house in my home, not going on Twitter.
Oh,
I actually don't know what my Twitter is.
I
Jack
had it
can
up a
plug
second ago.
his.
Okay, well, you can find me. I stream on Twitch. I make YouTube videos. I do TikTok. I wasn't supposed to say TikTok. I do Twitter stuff. It's all just AO Jack. You can find them all in the description and whatnot. And
Uh,
John, you know what? I'm gonna find yours for you.
Thank you so much.
John, your Twitter is at John Real Talk.
There you
So
go. Thank you
there
so
you
much to
go.
Jack for finding that. I've actually just opened it now and found it again. Thank you so much. And yeah, you just at John Real Talk if you want to have a chat with me. If you tell me I'm wrong, you can get upset with me. You can listen to the first 3 minutes of this podcast and go, he's chatting shit. The absolute waffle coming out of this man's mouth. That's fine. You know, if that's as much of this as you want to consume, you go for it. But those who've listened all the way, tell me if I'm right. Tell me if I'm wrong. I love you. And I really hope one day that we can all sit down, have a nice chat, and realize, maybe the world is a bit fucked up, but we're all here for it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I love you guys. Thank you so much for listening.
Are you gonna give kisses again, John? It's a brand new season. I don't know if you should or
We'll
not.
see you next week. Mwah!